right, so one of the ways that we as parents have that we can see what's happening with our kids is the parent portal. So the parent portal is something that has been out there since before the pandemic, and it's designed specifically for us parents to kind of get in and be able to see your students' grades, see what assignments they have if they're posted. Now, not all teachers use the portal exactly the same way, but it's kind of the first step in kind of getting in and seeing what's happening with your students. So I'm not sure how many of you guys may or may not be familiar with the parent portal, but it's something that is out there for you. And there's instructions on the website. We'll go through that in a minute on how to connect to it and what all is there. So basically, to get to the parent portal, all you're going to do is go to the main school website. You're going to go to this resources tab in the menu, and that's going to kind of bring you to another page. After you hit that, that gives you the opportunity right here to select parents. Parents, of course, means parents / caregivers / grandparents, whatever, you know, but parents is the tab that we have to go to. So in that tab, once we click on the parents tab, then that's going to bring us to the next screen that's going to kind of show us the different resources that are available to parents. There's many different resources here. I circled this one here, even though we're not going to go too much into this. This is a link that they put at the top. It's the Douglas County Instructional Technology Support for Parents. This is something I'd encourage you to explore on your own. It has a lot of some little tutorials, some YouTube videos, some things that can just kind of help you in the whole digital world. Some of them are kind of generic. None of them, well, some of them do apply specifically to Douglas County, but some of them are just like, okay, here's how Google Chat works, or here's how whatever works. So some of them aren't very specific, but there are some in there that will help you in the Douglas County world. Everything we're doing here tonight is very specific to Douglas County, to what your students are experiencing. But just wanted to give you that heads up that this is there under the parent support, under the resources, this very first link. So we're going to get to actually getting into the parent portal. So if you scroll down that page, about halfway down, you find the Infinite Campus Parent Portal. And that's what we want to get into. And that is where you can basically start to see things like grades and assignments and things like that. So the sign-on screen is going to be kind of what I showed in the first slide. You're going to have a place to put in your username and your password. And then once you do that, you can go ahead and log in. And that's going to open up kind of this opening screen, which shows you kind of announcements and also an inbox. So the announcements are things that are district-wide. They're not going to be specific to your students, but they're things that might be of use to you. The inbox is something that's going to apply to some classes, one of the classes that maybe one of your students is signed up for. As I mentioned, I have four kids in the school system, but what I've seen pretty much is that the only use of the inbox in my personal experience has only been for like band announcements for my oldest kid. None of the other teachers usually use the inbox, and that's because there's a lot of other tools that they can use to get information to us. It varies from school to school, mind you, what they use to talk to you. You know, there's email, of course. There's a ton of different ways that they can get to us. So my teachers don't really use this inbox here. They kind of communicate with us via different manners. Class Dojo is the way that they choose to chat with us for the most part. So inbox shows just things that are specific if they choose to use them. So assignments is one of the first places you can kind of go to kind of take a look at the things that have been given to them. Let me say this at the start as well. This Infinite Campus Parent Portal is not, it's not all inclusive, okay? So teachers don't always put all of their stuff in Infinite Campus, okay? A lot of teachers don't put things there until after the fact, especially with the grades. You know, as it comes towards the end of the grading period, they'll start to get really crowded with information. But during the day, during a normal day, a lot of teachers don't really post their stuff here. So you just need to know that. So like right here where it shows, and this is from an earlier screen print, but where it shows that there's no assignments for today, that wasn't true. Okay, there were assignments that went on. And so that's important to know when you're looking at this parent portal, is that just because it shows no assignments, your kid, if they come skipping in saying, hey, I didn't have any homework, you know, and you check the parent portal, you're like, well, it doesn't show anything. Well, that's not necessarily true. You got to dig a little deeper to really see what they had given to them for the day. And we're going to get to that, but just this is the view you get through the parent portal. So it's useful for seeing, I'd say it's most useful for seeing some things that have happened in the past, being able to go back and look at some grades that have been put into the system and kind of review and see some places where you might need to help your students to focus a little better. Me as a parent, I'm kind of looking at what they have here. And one thing I see as I can kind of scroll around here is up here, this is back up in February, there was this unit progress check that's showing, 27 out of 36, I don't know exactly what that's about, but as a parent, when I see 27 out of 36, I do the math. I'm like, okay, that's basically 3 out of 4 or 75. That's not usually what he's doing. So I don't know exactly what this is about, but I want to dig into it a little deeper real quick. Now, this is back in February again. So just using this as an example, when you're kind of scrolling through, checking out stuff, you're going to want to check a little more regularly. So if you click on this unit check thing here, this unit progress check, it's going to open up another window that's going to kind of show you a little bit more detail. So up here, I can click on the name of the class, Human Geography. And when I click on the name of the class here, it's going to kind of go a little deeper in and show me 4 different tabs. We got course info, that's the name of the teacher and all those things. So if I need to contact the teacher, I have their email right there. Very good thing to know, because sometimes those emails are kind of hidden within the web pages of schools. So we got course info. We also have the curriculum down here, and that just kind of tells you a little bit more about the things that have come into that classroom. Then next there's grades, and then there's also upcoming assignments. So these are the 4 tabs you see once you kind of click into the class. So for me right now, I'm just most interested in the grade. So if I click on that grade tab again, I can kind of look down in here and see what grades were kind of happening during the different terms. And I can see if there's an area that I need to focus. Now, in this particular case, I see that, my son, he's doing perfectly fine in this class. That 27 out of 36 was just some kind of a check. It apparently didn't have really any kind of an impact on his overall grade, because right now his in-progress grade, showing he's, 97. So one thing I want to just kind of emphasize here at the beginning is that all these tools that we're going to look at here, they are just that, they're tools, okay? So they're not weapons. So you shouldn't be, picking up these tools and just marching into the room and saying, hey, what's this 27 out of 36? And start beating your kids over the head with the numbers. These are tools with which you can start a conversation. And that's the most important thing for us as parents, caregivers, to understand, that we want to have a conversation with our kids. We don't always want to put them on the defense and have them feel like they're getting attacked by us. Even if we see a smoking gun information that says, hey, you've been slacking off, still, we want to start off with a conversation, because not everything that you see is reality. So what I mean by that, that 27 out of 36, that's 3/4. There could have been 4 sections in this thing that were just kind of things for them to check off. It's very possible that one of them, the teacher said, hey, don't worry about that, and so they didn't do it, but it still shows in the system as 27 out of 36. It might not have even really counted as anything at all. So start that conversation, be like, hey, I see this 27 out of 36, if you need to go there. For me, I'm not going to even go there. I see the grades are fine. It was just some kind of a progress check, so I don't need to go there. But what I want to emphasize is that you really need to not see something and just start freaking out, basically. Just realize that, hey, this just, let me start a conversation. Let me not take my baseball bat out, start beating my kid down for something that they remember, I didn't do it, just start the conversation up. So that's kind of a quick look into getting into the assignments. Grades is kind of another way you can go into there, and there you can kind of get a look overall at all the grades for all the classes and kind of see how your kids are doing. And so if we click on that, it has 3 different areas: all terms, which shows you all the classes that they've taken. Then you can also, if you want to, kind of do it by the terms. You got the term 1, the term 2, kind of click on those different tabs and it'll kind of just show you what classes have happened where. But looking at the all terms, it's kind of just showing me all the classes that I have for my son. That's the health and the PE, the biology, the IB, 9th grade lit, Spanish, whatever. So all those things are there. At a quick glance, I can see that his grades are looking pretty good. And so again, I'm not going to feel like I need to go on the attack mode or anything, but this is just information. Hey, let me see what's happening. How are things progressing? I get a progress report sent home, every, couple months or whatever. But if I want to know what's happening a little more, hey, dig into the parent portal. But once the kids kind of get up to high school, it might be you've given them the little car keys, and they take off on time to go to school. You assume they get to school on time, but you know what? You might dig into it some and just be like, hey, I'm gonna make sure I'm not seeing a bunch of tardies showing up here, that they're not making that little McDonald's stop every morning and getting their little, Frappuccino something other, or getting their little hash browns with their, Egg McMuffin. Let me just check on that. So good way to do that is to get into the attendance tab here and check out attendance and see if anything is there that is of concern. So here under the attendance tab, I see, looking at these classes, this is for the whole term. We're pretty much seeing no absence here. If I kind of dig in or scroll down a little bit more, I can see that there's been a couple things in this one class showing a tardy. I already know what happened on those days. I see this unexcused absence. I know what happened there. This is a place for you to go and to see what's happening and see if there is any kind of a concern that you need there. So that's just a couple quick things with the parent portal. Also, if you have multiple children, you can kind of click through them. So this area up here is going to be, you might see a little drop down tab if you have more than one child in the school system. You can click on that and it's going to kind of show you your different kids that you have and how you can kind of get to them. You can just kind of select a name and then it's going to kind of give you the individual kids. So I can kind of go through my students here and see, okay, here's one of my kids, my 5th grade student, here's my 3rd grade student, what they have. Click on the next one, there's my 7th grade student. So I can kind of get into their thing. And once you get into there, you can start clicking the different tabs and see if there's things that you need to address. So that's the parent portal in a nutshell. Also, most of you probably are familiar with MyOn. So the program that the younger kids use, most of them use MyOn. It's a reading program that allows them to kind of track their reading. It's a way for the teachers to be able to gauge where the kids are in their reading development. I got just a couple months ago, back in January, I got this thing that kind of told me a way to connect to MyOn, to connect to what they're doing and kind of see their progress. But basically it's a way that they can measure the reading. It's something that if you have a parent-teacher conference, if you have younger kids, they definitely get into that. It's something that I definitely, my younger kids do use that. My 3rd grader, 5th grader, they use MyOn. They have to read a certain amount and they have a goal. And so if that is the case, there is this Renaissance Home Connect that you should have available to you. And that's a way that you can kind of get in and see what they're doing, see their progress. So I'm just going to go through this really quick. Here under that, they kind of give you a way that you can connect. It's kind of a long website that's really ugly to type, but you can do it and get into there. You can log into this Renaissance system, and from there, you can see their progress. So as soon as it opens up, you can see here, the goal is like 39 points. She has 114, almost 115 points that she has. And so she's already reached her reading goal. And so I'm glad to see that. If not, this little flower here would only be partially filled up. So when you open the page, it kind of fills up the flower, kind of shows it going up or whatever. So for this one, I know she's already gotten to where she needs to be. But what's cool about this is that you can kind of click into it and you can see what they've been reading. You can see what scores they made on the things that they read. And you can see if there's an area where, again, there needs to be some help. So I see here in March, there's been about 10 books that she's read so far. There's some other months where they don't read as much. Here in February, there's only like 2 books they read. I don't know why, maybe winter break, maybe, I don't know exactly what went behind that. But again, this is a conversation starter that, hey, only 2 books here, is that normal? That's all your teacher gave you? Did we forget to say to get on MyOn? What happened during, conversation starter, if you choose. It's kind of interesting because if I click in here enough, it goes all the way down to previous months or previous years. So here in October, I look and I'm like, well, goodness gracious, February was 2 books, but here in October, I kind of made it small here so you can see. There's like 63 books they went through in October that she took this test on. So I'm like, I compare 63 books to 2 books. And again, conversation starter. Hey, you guys read a lot back then. What's been happening lately, What you can do though, this, as I mentioned, goes all the way back to, like in my case, August of 2019. But you can click into a book here, and this one shows a 80. So it means that, there was a question missed. Most of them only have 5 questions. Some of them have more. So if I want to, I can click into this and kind of see a little more about the book. It was passed 4 out of 5 right. So they got 0.4 points. I can look at these review questions and kind of see exactly what was missed if I want to. I can also go back out and I can click into this area here where it kind of shows me where they are with the goal and some other details. So that's just something there to see with MyOn and how that works. Now, I want to quickly get into the Google Classroom thing because that's where a lot of the rest of our time kind of needs to be spent, is in the Google apps. So again, the parent portal, even that little Renaissance MyOn check thing, those are things that you can directly log into once you get the information from the teachers, or once you go to the district website and get your parent portal information. You can get to that yourself. Google Classroom, these are things that you do not have direct access to. So you have to go through your kids to get access to this. And that's an important thing to note. I, as a parent, I would prefer if I could just have my own sign-on in the Google Classroom and be able to see everything without having to dig around into my kid's account. But that's not the case. So we just have to learn how to get into it and learn how it works. Now, the one thing that you can get is this Google Classroom weekly summary. I don't know if any of you guys are signed up for that or not. It should have been something that was given to you at the start of the year that the teacher should have reached out to you and said, hey, you can sign up for this Google Classroom thing. And what it does is it gives you a weekly summary of what went on in the past week. If you choose, you can turn it into a daily thing to where every day it tells you what happened that past day. Mine's set up for weekly right now, but you can change that in the settings. So it gives you basically an email that lets you see what happened. So here I can see there's a 5th grade art assignment. And if I scrolled on down, I can see what else had happened during the week. The only thing about this that I don't particularly like is the fact that it is a after the fact thing. Okay, so it lets me know what happened the past week. But if there's something that I want to know that's happening today, I don't really get to see it real time. So this is just a summary of what has already happened. And so for me, I don't like to be reactive. I like to be proactive. I like to be able to say, hey, here's something we need to work on now because this is due tonight. You know, I'm not going to see due tonight really on this thing until tonight's already come and gone. So that's just kind of a heads up on that. It will also tell you here, like I got one a couple of weeks ago that says, hey, there was some missing work. And so that's going to show up in the summary as well that, hey, this work wasn't turned in for some reason or another. Again, conversation starters. So as a parent, when I see missing work, immediately I'm like, whoa, missing work. Let me get out my baseball bat, you know, time to go marching down and say, hey, what's up? And of course, I shouldn't say baseball bat. I don't beat my kids with baseball bats, of course, you know, just using that figuratively. Don't be reporting me to DFACS or anything. But anyhow, it kind of puts you on high alert to see that there's missing work. A lot of conversations I've had, though, says when I talk to, you know, maybe my daughter that this came from, she's like, yeah, that was work that the teacher decided we didn't need to do. They put it out there for us to do, but then we ran out of time in the classroom. And so that work never was actually done. And the thing is, if it shows up here as missing work, that basically means that the teacher just maybe forgot to go back in and to take that assignment out. And so now it's going to show up on the report as missing work. It may or may not be missing work for real, but again, conversation starter. Talk, see what's up. And again, the conversations might even need to be with the teacher, you know. I'm sending a message saying, hey, I see some missing work. And they can write you back and say, hey, oh, that was just something that, you know, no, that really isn't missing. Or yes, your daughter or your son actually didn't turn that assignment in. I'm going to give them a chance to turn it in again, but that's truly missing work. So start the conversations up so you can know what's going on. So how do we get into the students portal? Okay, we've talked about the parent portal, but how do we get into the students actual portal? We have to do that from the same spot. We go to the resources tab, and down here where we did parents before, now we also see there's a students tab. So if you click on the students tab, that's going to bring you to their page. And just about 4 items down on that page is their Douglas County portal single sign-on. So that's what gets them into their world. On their Chromebooks, as soon as they open up their Chromebook, they automatically have that login page showing, okay? But as a parent, unless you physically steal their Chromebook, which sometimes you just might do, hey, do what you gotta do. But unless you physically take their Chromebook, if you're logging in from another system, you're gonna have to go in this way and click onto this tab here. And then that's gonna take you to the sign-on screen that they're very familiar with seeing, that they always see when they open their Chromebook. So you're gonna have to get their username and their password. Now again, talking about conversations, depending on the ages of your kids, they may or may not be that forthcoming with their sign-on information. Younger kids, they don't care. They're like, sure, I'm proud to tell you what my username and password is. I got it memorized, you know, they'll just rattle it right off. What I noticed with my own kids, okay, my 3rd grader was like, all right, here's the username password. 5th grader was like, okay, here's my username, here's my password. Why do you want this? Okay, so it started to kind of get a little, 7th grader asked for the username password. And the first question was, okay, why do you need my username and password? You know, so suspicion is already starting to come into the room, you know? By the time I get to the 9th grader, my son, you know, and I ask him for his stuff, he just kind of looks at me. He's kind of like, okay. So now we got the CIA coming in action. You're gonna be spying on my every move. All, you know, that's the reaction I got from him. Like, okay, you don't need to be getting into my business. You know, I'm making good enough grades. You don't have to worry about me. Be prepared. You know, do what you got to do to try to get that out, because that's the only way you're going to get into their stuff. is with their username and their password, or else you're going to kind of be blind to what's really happening because you don't have that backpack. You can't empty it. So you got to be able to get into your digital. So we get into that, and depending on what your student has, well, depending some on their grade level, their ability, everything else, you're going to see a screen that looks somewhat similar to this, has the outlay of what they can do, different areas they can get into. In this case, we're going to be getting into this Google Classroom right here. But depending on the student and depending on how their screen looks, this may not be showing right there up and obvious, okay? So they may have created a folder. They can create folders. They can personalize it. Like here, this didn't start off pink. But, my daughter's like, hey, I like pink. So they get in there, they start doing stuff, moving stuff around. And so one of my other daughters, she made a folder. Here's Google stuff. Okay, so when I look out here, I don't see that Google Classroom. But hey, she made up Google stuff. So I'm like, okay, it's probably in here, even though I don't see it. Now, if you don't find it, you can go to the search bar here and you can start typing in, classroom, and it's going to show you, okay, Google Class, because it's in there somewhere. So it's going to show it to you. So you can click on it here, or you can go to the folder here. And if you click on the folder, it's going to kind of open up and you can see it sitting right there, Google Classroom. So you can kind of go ahead and get into it. So once you get into that, you can click on your Google Classrooms. It's going to open up these icons here that kind of show you at a glance what's happening. So at this point, what you're kind of starting to see, and I'm going to talk a little more deeper about this in session 2. And hopefully you guys are signed up for part 2 of this training, because we just don't have time to get deep into everything. But this part that you see right here is basically the equivalent of kind of like a homework folder. Okay. So at a glance, I can look and be like, okay, 3rd grade music for today, there was no homework, so to speak. There's nothing showing up there. Same for, this is actually an old icon from last year. I'm not sure why it's still showing up here, but here I see in this big 3rd grade folder, there's, hey, something due Friday. So again, this is helping me to see at a glance, kind of like a homework folder that you'd open up physically. I can glance here and kind of see what I need to pay attention to. Now, if you're looking at one of these blank ones and thinking, okay, well, maybe there really is something in there I need to research, maybe you can click on it and kind of look. And I see here that there actually was something posted by the music teacher. And so I might be like, okay, what is that? Is that something I need to take action on? It wasn't showing up there, but they posted something. Maybe you got a bored kid, and you're like, hey, I need to find you something to do. I need to dig around here until I find, you can get ahead of the game. Just click in here and see what you can do. So if I click through this, this music thing, I can kind of get here to where it shows me exactly what was posted. And here it's in a Google Doc. And if I click on this, it shows me here that what was posted basically was their learning, kind of their learning sheet for the whole week. It's going to kind of tell them what they needed to do, what in-person people need, what digital learning people need. But basically all they're going to do is show up and get ready to learn. So unfortunately, if I'm looking for something for my kid to do, this wasn't the place to find it, because all this is saying is they got to come with the class. So you can dig into different things. Here in the 3rd grade area, this is where all their classes actually go, all their main classes, social studies, science, math, all that's found in this particular tab for this student. So if I click on this, this link right here, it shows me there's a reading assignment. And so in the reading assignment, I see that there's these Google Slides for every day. Now, as I kind of click through these, I saw that they were already here for the entire week. And I'm like, okay, hey, maybe that's something that they can do. They can get ahead. Because if you got a really smart kid, sometimes they just get through stuff too quick. And so you're like, okay, you got through that homework really quick, but I don't want you just to think that you're bored and you don't do anything now. So, hey, maybe you can do something else. So for me, I'm always kind of looking for those kind of things. But if I click into these here, what I kind of see is that these actually are just kind of like a placeholder for what they do during the class time. So the class time starts, the students go to these things here, and they basically click through it with the teacher. So the teacher says, okay, let's do this slide here. Here's what day we're on. The teacher's going to read aloud to them. And then there's a place down here where they actually fill out information. But this is done with the teacher in the classroom. So again, this is just to let you know that when you see something out there, it doesn't necessarily mean that that is something that your kid can be doing right now. Sometimes it's something they might go over in homeroom. Sometimes it might be something they might do during a class time, but it's showing out there so you can just kind of know what's going on. So if I click up here on the actual title of this classroom, it's going to show me everything that's in that entire classroom, not just that one reading assignment that was shown, but it's going to show me everything that's in there. And so I can see here there's been math assignments, there's been social studies, writing, grammar, all those things have been in there, they've been posted. But because they're not showing up in that window, all those other things, that kind of means that they probably have a later due date, or in some cases, it also means that they may have already been done. So the things that are most current are typically going to show up in that little box there that we looked at. So if I click through any of these here, again, it's just going to kind of show that these are things like here, in this case, there's a assessment that they're doing. But here the teachers are actually telling you, they're like, hey, we will complete this together. So I know, okay, this is something they're doing in the class. Here it says, you know, complete in homeroom. They're doing this in homeroom. So I know that this is nothing that my kid can be doing, you know, by themselves. They're gonna have to wait. So just clicking real quick here to another student, one of my other daughters. Here it's showing something that was due today. So this is where I can kind of be like, okay, if they're coming home and saying they don't have any homework, I'm like, okay, let me check on this thing here so I can know for sure. Did you do this? You know, this title notes page thing that's showing up here. Also shows due Thursday, but here I'm concerned with this due today. Okay, I gotta know, are you trying to hide something from me, you know? Because hey, we all know we were all kids. You get by with what you can. If you don't feel like doing homework, you're gonna wait to the last second, all those things. So anyhow, clicking on this, I can see that this, you know, was about doing some punctuations and different things like that. It's been assigned, so that means they can go ahead and do it if I see that word assigned there. They can go ahead and do it and turn it in. And there's, well, let me say this too. So there's a big turn in button here at the bottom. Remember, you're in your kid's world, okay? So you don't want to get click happy, you know? You don't want to look at this big X right here and be like, oh, that's a cute little X. Let me X this out. Suddenly their homework is like gone. Next time they log in, they're like, oh, I don't see any homework. It's gone. Or they'll say, oh, this turn in, I wonder what turn in does. And you click that button and it turns in an empty assignment that they never even worked on. And if the teacher sees it turned in and the teacher kind of gets it into their field, the kid no longer has access to it. And so you just make sure, you know, you don't get click happy, because this is, you know, this is their real world that they're in. So typically you're not going to do anything that they can't fix, but still. So that's looking at that and seeing what we have there. You can also kind of see, again, like I talked about, you know, being able to complete things together. And there's just a lot of different information you can see here when you click through. It goes all the way back. I got March, I got January. Sometimes everything I've noticed doesn't show up in the stream, because this is kind of a stream view. It showed what was upcoming today, but it also shows other things that are happening here. So sometimes everything doesn't show up here, so you have to kind of go in a different way, okay? If I click on this view all, it's going to bring me up all the assignments that are out there, okay? So that's a good thing to do, clicking on view all. And then that's going to open up this thing that kind of shows me what's been assigned, what's missing, and what is done. And these are good things to know about, okay? So looking here under assigned, I can see those same things that showed up before. But if I click on the missing tab, what's cool here is I can see that, hey, here's something that was supposed to have been done, and it's missing. So again, this is a conversation starter. Why is this missing? Why am I not seeing this here? This is something I actually talked to my daughter about and saw what the deal was. Hey, why is this missing? And she let me know that, hey, this was an assignment that the teacher said that we weren't supposed to do until the next day. And so it showed up here missing. When I went in here and when I click in here, I see that this is an assignment that literally could have been done in 30 seconds, okay? So probably either she didn't see it, you know, because if she saw it, she could have done this in 30 seconds. Or as I mentioned in the case of her, she said the teacher said we were not supposed to do that today. So again, have that conversation and see, but I can see that this is something she could have done in a second, you know, literally. So anyhow, again, you do have things that you can look at from last week, see what was there, or even in this case, I can look at earlier and it goes back into February and everything, just showing that, hey, 18 missing assignments. So conversation starter, are you not turning in assignments? Is this something that's happening with the teacher that, you know, you have a lot of times where they run out of time and you just don't do that assignment? What is happening here? So I need to look at this information and say, hey, let me start up a conversation and let me see exactly what's happening here. And also let me say this too, okay, so maybe this student of mine is making straight A's. And so I just say, I don't need to check anything. They're making straight A's, I don't need to worry about getting into the Google Classroom, everything's all good. That's not always the case. And what you need to realize too as a parent, I know this, you know, you guys are this way, you need to realize that sometimes there might be some habits that your kids are developing. I don't know this for a fact about, you know, this particular student, that they're not turning in assignments, that they're, you know, they're like, hey, I got good grades, I don't have to do everything, I can still make good grades. If that's a way that, you know, someone starts thinking, a student starts thinking, that might work for them through elementary school. They might get away with stuff in middle school. And if they're really smart, they can be slack and they can make it through high school, not doing everything they need to do. But guess what? At some point or another, they're going to get busted. It might be in college, it might be in the workplace, but if they're doing things, if they're being slack, if they're not really doing everything they should be doing, it's going to catch up with them. So as a parent, to me, it's very important to know that, hey, is this an area that I need to work on? So I need to start that conversation, you know. It may literally be nothing at all, but if it is something, that's something we need to talk about and say that, hey, even if it's not affecting your grade, you need to do these things. You need to do your assignments. It's a part of what you need to do. You need to have good habits that you're building. So I just wanted to show you that part real quick here. When I look at some of this missing stuff, you can kind of dig in and see different levels of stuff. It can show what's missing. You can show what grades were made. It can show even as well, this area here of done late. So you're like, what? Done late? What's that about? It's turned in, but it was done late. Okay, again, another conversation starter. Could be that the teacher said, turn it in tomorrow, it's fine. And they did turn it in, but now it's showing that it was done late. Maybe the teacher never changed the due date, and that can happen. If they don't change the due date, even though the teacher said it was okay to turn in later, it's going to show late here. So again, these are tools, they're not weapons. So let's not necessarily look at these and say, I'm going to beat up my kid, they've been doing things late for all this time. Let's start the conversation up and see what's really happening here. But you can only do that, again, when you get into Google Classroom. From the parent portal, you can't see that. It's not going to show you this level of information. And there's no other place you're going to see it until you start digging into Google Classroom and seeing what's going on. Another thing showing here, and I know we're running a little bit short on time, but that's okay. Another thing here that we can look at is the Google Drive. So this is a way at a glance to kind of see everything that's going on with them. If you talk to teachers, they're going to kind of tell you, my wife said this, you know, again, she's a teacher. She said the Google Drive is kind of a little bit of a messy area. Anything that they touch immediately will go to the Google Drive. As soon as they turn it in, it shows up in the Google Drive. And so when I look here, I can see things from, you know, from today, from yesterday's, from different classes. There's documents, there's slideshows, there's PDF files, there's all these different things here. But if I wanted to glance just to kind of see what they're doing, I can click on these and kind of just, it'll open up and let me know, hey, here's what they're working on right now. Again, previously you could do that by taking their backpack, emptying it out and taking a look at the papers in there. But how do you do it here without logging into their system? You don't have insight to that. So going to the Google Drive can just quickly give you an opportunity to see, hey, here's the kind of stuff that they're working on. I see what they're learning right now. And because I don't know about you, but sometimes if I ask my kids, hey, how did it go today? It was okay. What'd you learn? Nothing. And I'm like, nothing? Why am I sending you to school? I mean, I'm sure you learned something. You know, so here's a place where you can see what they're learning. You know, I mean, your kids might be different than mine, but my kids typically, you know, I might just get a sentence out of them when I ask them what's going on. But if I want to dig in there a little deeper, go to the Google Drive and you can click on these. Now, let me tell you this. Again, this is a live system. And so unlike the parent portal, where you're kind of looking at stuff, you're seeing grades, you can click wherever you want to, you can look at stuff. It's not going to affect anything. As soon as you get into the Google Drive and you start clicking on things, it immediately is going to register that this document was viewed, okay? Not a big deal, but just something to know. So if I was to click on one of these things right now, it's going to automatically update the time and be like, okay, at whatever, 6:49 or whatever, it's going to show, boom, this document was opened up. And it's going to suddenly move from this area down here of being yesterday, it's going to move up to today. It's going to show up in the recent files. It's going to be the first thing that shows up there. So like in my case, when I was kind of getting into some of these things and putting together some slides, I was clicking on a bunch of different files. And then when I went into the system and kind of looked, you know, showed it, you know, like 1:30 in the morning, you know, here's this file being viewed and all that stuff. So, you know, if my daughter comes and looks at this, you can be like, what? Why is this file? I wasn't doing anything at 1:30 in the morning. I was just sleeping, you know. So everything that you do, just a heads up that everything you do, and it's no big deal, but everything you do is just going to show up. It's going to affect it when you click on these, because what Google does is it automatically saves stuff. So even if you didn't do anything to the document, the fact that you opened it up, Google's going to make a note. It's going to auto save it. It's going to basically timestamp it and be like, hey, this is the last time this document was touched. So just be aware of that in there. So I wanted to just kind of touch on Google Drive, and there's not really too much here to go into. And now as far as specific other Google apps that we deal with, within here you can kind of see that there is this icon here. I don't know how well you can see it, but there's a little kind of a blue icon here. That means that it's a Google Doc. Okay, so Google Docs are something similar to, like, if you've been in the Microsoft world, that's like Microsoft Word. Okay. Also here you can see that there's this yellow icon, which is slides. That's the same thing as like Microsoft PowerPoint. Okay. So that's basically the equivalent of a PowerPoint presentation. Also down here, there's something called Jamboard. There's no real equivalent for that, but it's kind of, a Jamboard is kind of like a whiteboard, kind of like a chalkboard kind of thing. You can throw anything you want to up there. So they have Jamboard. They also have PDFs, and there's different ways they can go in and edit those and everything else. So all these icons here just kind of show you what kind of document it is. So your kids are learning how to use these things some at different levels. Younger kids are just kind of going in there and just, you know, typing in different little things. Older kids maybe learn a little bit more about formatting and making it look nicer. And of course, the high school kids, they start even using different things as well. You know, they start using sometimes some of the Excel spreadsheets, which in here are just called sheets. And so they start starting to learn those kind of things. So that's another thing. And we're going to do an exit interview. I'm going to, not an exit interview, an exit survey. I'm going to throw your guys' way. Because what I do want to see from you guys is things that you want to maybe learn more about. Because as parents, you know, there's different ways we can help our students. And sometimes if we're clueless, like if I don't know how to use Google Docs, you know, it's going to be hard for me to help my student when they need help in that area. So sometimes we need a little training ourselves, even on these individual things within the Google world. I did want to mention again, just this parent support portal that was out there on the webpage. That again was the top of the links when you go under the resources, and then parent resources. And then at the very top of that list, once you get in that area, is the parent support portal. So in here, there's just some things that can help you as a parent, just with some of the digital aspects of learning. There is this G Suite Classroom for Parents. This has some little videos that can just kind of help you learn some of the basics of some of the things that we've talked about, and some things that we haven't touched on, like the Google Drive. We touched on a little bit, but the slides, the docs, whatever. So these are just kind of like little mini tutorials. They're not specific to our school system. It's just kind of a little Google tutorial, more or less there. But there's a lot of stuff that's buried into this parent support portal. So I definitely, you know, invite you to dig into that a little bit more and see exactly what might be of use to you there. Any questions that somebody has that we can just chat about for just a moment?
Hi. Well, my question actually is for the next coming session. I saw that you had a part 1 and a part 2.
Yes.
So we would need to sign up for the part 2 for this specific topic, right?
Yes. Yeah. You want to sign up for the part 2. Part 2 digs a little more into what some things that advanced students might be dealing with, and also into some techniques as a parent that you can use to deal with them. As I kind of mentioned, as they get older, the teachers use the system a little bit different, your students use the system different, and you as a parent have to interact with your students differently. I can't approach these things with my 9th grader the same way I can with my 3rd grader. You know, it's a totally different ball game. Again, we're going to dive a little deeper into some of this, the Google ecosystem, because we couldn't go too deep today. We just kind of had to have an overview. So we're going to dive a little deeper, even into Google Classroom, and we're going to look at some ways that you can kind of help your student with things. And this is more for advanced students, older students, so just something you can kind of prepare your students for as they get older. Looking at things like time management, and how you can look at these things and be like, hey, this is coming ahead. Let's look at how we manage our time a little bit better, you know, because kids, even some adults, some of us are guilty at times of procrastinating and stuff. But using these tools, you can be like, hey, this is coming. Be prepared, get ahead when you can and everything else. So we're going to look at some of those ways you can help your kids with that, and look at a couple other applications just a little closer to see how those work. So if you're not signed up for part 2, definitely sign up for it. When a teacher goes into this system, and I'm going to talk about this someone, so I'm not going to go too much off on this, but when they go into the system, all they see is their world, their perspective, the fact that they can touch everything, they can do whatever they want to. But as parents, when we get into the system, this is not our world. Yeah. So I can't even send my daughter an email to her school email address, because it only works within their ecosystem, you know.
I didn't have a question, but I just did want to thank you for presenting the information. I found it very helpful to me. And I'm gonna try to go on it and navigate through it. So I appreciate you taking the time to instruct us in this way.
Well, thank you very much. And I appreciate you saying that. And yeah, if possible, please join me for a second session if you didn't already sign up, because I'd like to kind of complete what we were talking about and get a little deeper into some things that I believe will be very helpful for you. Because again, the digital aspect of learning isn't going to ever totally go away. Okay, so now that we're into this, that's going to be there. You know, even next year, I think the school system is trying to get most everyone back to an in-person state as much as possible, but there still will be a digital aspect to what's happening in the school system. And so it's never going to go back 100% to how it was before the pandemic. We've kind of entered a new era of education.
I just wanted to, thank you so much. I have a question before, but like you said, if you have kids in different grades, I think the screen and everything changes. So I don't think I have any question. The only question I was going to ask was concerning the Infinite Campus, the parent portal. So, but now I see that it's different because when you opened it, I think there's a place I saw curriculum. And then when I was like, I don't have any curriculum. I cannot see any curriculum in mine. So, but when you say, when you have kids for different grades, I think the way they set it is different.
Yes, yes, definitely different. So, I've seen, especially with the younger kids, there's not much there at all a lot of times for them. In my case anyhow, with my high school student, his teachers will put stuff in there, and they'll even put stuff in kind of as a placeholder sometimes. Like, this is something we're going to be working on. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the system, because I actually had to have a conversation with one of the teachers because I saw that there was a 0 out of 100 sitting there. And I was like, a 0? Uh-oh, somebody didn't do their work. And so I shot off a message to the teacher, and they said, oh, that's just a placeholder. They haven't even gotten this assignment to do yet, but I've gone ahead and put it in the system. So whenever they get their grade, I can just slap the grade in there. So some teachers are very proactive. They put the stuff up there. Other teachers, you're not going to find anything there really at all, until it comes to the end of the grading period where they have to put the grades in. So it all really depends on that. So yeah, that's a good comment, a good observation.
I did have a question. As a
Yes.
parent, my child's in 6th grade, and they have a trillion assignments due, and he has 6 classes. And my concern is, one, I spoke to the assistant principal. All the assignments are not graded. So a teacher may pick 2 or 3 assignments and put that as a grade. So as a parent, how do we know, which assignment, make sure they're getting it done? Well, I try to make sure to get all the assignments done.
Yes.
And get a good grade. But as a parent, we pushing them so hard, okay, do this, and the teacher not gonna grade that particular assignment. They may grade one that, you did the bad on, and, put that as part of your grade. So I guess as a parent, I'm thinking they're grading all the assignments for their grades.
Yeah.
And so, I do ask the teachers that, and they'll tell me, oh, well, this assignment I graded this, and this how the grade came out. And I'm just like, as a parent, okay,
yeah,
why give kids 10 assignments a day, for homework, and you're not gonna grade it, the assignment.
yes.
So that's my concern is for the teacher.
Yeah, and that's a very valid thing. And there's 2 pieces to that. So during this whole pandemic, and the teachers, the superintendent himself, he's very aware that, okay, during this time right now, this is a different time. At the end of last year, even before that, I had a conversation with him, and he's like, hey, I know that there's some things being missed right now, because this is new to everybody. And so part of the thing is that, unlike prior to the pandemic where, what they got, here's your assignment, it counts, everything counts, Right now, what they know is that some of the kids, now that everyone has Google Chromebooks, things are more equal. Okay, so especially at the end of last year, the students and the parents, teachers basically told them that, hey, it was known that whatever you did, whatever grade you had before the pandemic, it wasn't going to change. They're not going to give you a lower grade. You can raise your grade, but you're not going to be affected because the playing field's not equal. So that was kind of out there. And so even going into this new year, unfortunately, what you're seeing can still happen. And so, you're doing the right thing, and that is having a conversation, because I've had the same thing happen to me, to where it was maybe based even on something that I saw. And it's like, okay, what is this grade? I had a conversation, and I'm going to talk about this some in part 2. But there's some things that my middle schooler was doing in her math class. And she would turn in assignments because they came on a Google form. And when they came on that form, with math, it's really hard, because what they do is it would instantly grade them. And so if they didn't put it in exactly the same way as the teacher had it in there, they'd miss the question. And so literally what I saw was my daughter, she'd hit the submit button, and all of a sudden tears would come down.
Yeah.
Like, I just got a 40. I thought I did everything right, She might have done everything right, but, she didn't have a space between the 1 and the 2/3. So, unfortunately, there's things like that. So, what happened with me is I talked to the teacher, and they're like, oh, don't, that's no big deal. Number one, I go back and I grade those things. I look at them individually to make sure that didn't happen. And also, with this particular thing, that's like you said, that's not going to really count, and I'm like thinking to myself, okay, you just got my daughter in tears for something that, that isn't really going to affect her in one way or another as far as academics. So that's conversations that you have to have with the teacher. And I know you said you've already done that, but that just has to be a continual conversation, and something that hopefully is just going to get better, because it is kind of like shooting in the dark when they got so much stuff to do already.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, okay, why am I burning all this time on something that's not going to even, and that's always been a thing with school anyhow, as parents, when you look at something, you're like, you know what? I know in life that whether or not this is an irrational number is not going to affect your livelihood. I know that, but you don't tell all that stuff to your kids, but you kind of know there's stuff they do that's not going to count. So yeah, conversations, it's all about conversations for sure. So yeah, that just has to be a continual conversation. That's a great comment. Any final comments?
No, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you guys very much.
Thanks so much for doing this.
All right, you're welcome.
Yes, thank you. Bye-bye.